what the hell's going on?
Right.
You know, and what are you guys doing with this devotion? What's happening? Well, there wasn't much of anything going on. 200 feral cats running around the place. The place was a mess.
Right.
And she was kind of a mess, and she needed help. And my dad, being the tax man that he was and being the advocate for churches.
We ain't paid taxes in 30 years.
Well, he says, hey, if I can help you, he says, you know, I work with the IRS. I'm a tax man. You know, I do a lot of taxes for a lot of religious in the diocese. She says, oh, I don't pay taxes. She says, I'm a nun.
Oh.
And he says, yeah. She says, well, religious people don't have to file taxes. He says, who told you that?
Right.
And she goes, oh, that's common knowledge. He says, that's bullshit. He says,
you got to file.
He says, you're in trouble. He says, when was the last time you ever filed taxes? She says, I haven't filed taxes for 30 years. He goes, you've really got a problem.
Wow.
And
did they ever do anything about it, or did that?
I don't know. I don't think they ever did.
Can't imagine.
It wasn't my problem.
Right.
My dad was just trying to help her. She says, well, I don't need your help. You're just a man.
So you and your father walk away knowing that this thing is not right.
Well, we knew that something was off balance with it, and I wasn't the determining factor as to whether or not somebody was or was not a nun in good standing with their diocese.
So what did you?
That wasn't my question to go find out.
What did you do from there in terms of your mission and in terms of?
Well, I went back to Rome City, and I took about 20 cats with me off her hands. Oh, yeah. She had so many cats. It was ridiculous. I mean, it was bad.
Yeah.
And so I took 20 of them in the van with me. My dad says, what the hell are you going to do with all these cats? I said, I'm going to set them in the barn, you know, and they can keep the rats down there.
That's a good point, yeah.
And the coyotes ate them.
Oh, they did?
Yeah. Cats are apparently delicious to coyotes.
Oh.
So the cat started disappearing, and, you know.
It's funny.
Well, it's not funny for the cat, you know, but.
Oh. It's okay. Did they get any rats?
Oh, yeah, the rats and all like that, yeah. It started abating. Now, you send 20 cats into an arena.
Right, they got to eat, right?
Those rats are like.
We got to eat, too.
Those rats are on their way out the door. So, anyway, we went back. My dad, the whole way back from Fostoria, is going, no, we just got to watch ourselves with her. I said, yeah, I know. And so that was 2001, and I started buying medallions from her because she had the medallions.
Okay.
And I would put the medallions in the gift shop, and people would come and buy those, and that was always kind of interesting because I think I was paying like $5 a piece for them and like selling them for like $6. You know,
You're making nothing.
I didn't want to make any money off it because
something to cover.
I just thought it was icky to be making money off of religious stuff.
Right, but you can recycle it into buying more with the extra bucks.
Well, it was just
right.
I was just trying to keep people's requests, you know, taken care of. You know, I'm not a big medallion guy. You know, I'm not a big, you know, amulets and stuff like that. I don't do a lot of spiritual hokey pokey. I think it's helpful to help explain things.
It's a reminder.
You know, the front and the back. And that's what I use it for, as an educational element.
Right.
Not as some sort of like divine protection.
Yeah. No, Libel did it for a reason, and that I think that for them remembering it and what it is, something carry with
right.
you.
It brings it to your state of mind and your thinking in that moment. So we had those. So I was getting those from her, and I was putting them in the thing, and then she'd be calling me, I need more money, you know, blah, blah, blah. You know, I know you're making more money off of this than I said, lady, I'm not making any money off of this here.
This is wild.
She says, well, I'm just a poor nun. I need help.
Here we go.
So the whole poor nun thing. So I started, I'd send her money when I had it, try to help her out. Oh, help the gal out in Fostoria. Well, she was playing this game of being this poor nun with all these people. And I think a lot of you folks out there still think that she was a poor nun and 3 rich guys came and took advantage of her. Got to tell you, none of that happened. The poor nun thing, 2 things are wrong with it. She wasn't poor and she wasn't a nun. Neither one of them are true. She hadn't been a nun since 1977. And she hadn't been poor since Leibold's sister gave her $3 million of bank stocks and I think a bunch of acreage.
I think it was one other thing you commented about her. Not awake?
Oh no, that was the three of them. One was not a nun, not a cop, and not awake.
Okay.
That's a whole other story. So
Okay.
you keep jumping around. So
I'm right with you, brother.
I know.
I just gotta wait until you complete your thoughts that we go into the next thing.
Okay. You want me to hurry up?
Where are we going
Okay.
from here? Let's start.
Well, okay. So we got this woman here who's hitting me for cash now. And she's hitting everybody else up for cash in too. She hit on up for her checks.
You were saying Jan used to give her social security.
Jan wanted to go and
It's
take
terrible, yeah.
her group of older ladies to go over and
yeah,
try to
yeah.
visit Fostoria, help this woman out. Well, she convinced these four ladies that she was this poor nun needing help, and she needed $8,000 a month.
Oh, jeez.
And these ladies thought to themselves, well, with our Social Security checks each month, they come up to $8,000. We should just give them our Social Security checks each month, and we can live off our other. So these four ladies decided upon themselves to start turning over their pension and Social Security checks to put Patty Fuller, calling herself Sister Joseph Therese. They started doing that, sending her money.
Yeah.
Until I finally told them, I said, stop it.
Did they listen to you? Did they stop?
I hope they did.
Okay.
And I said, she's not a nun and she's not poor. And they go, what do you mean? I said, she told me, and she showed me when she wanted to buy the property. She tried showing me how wealthy she was and she could do this. So she confided in me that she had this $3 million in banknotes. She had all this other land, and she had other bank accounts and stuff like that she wouldn't go into and describe. But she was trying to tell me how she was so well set that she could, more than easily, buy this place.
Yeah, and at the same time asking for money. So
Right.
if you're well set, you don't need the money.
Well, she's grifting and she's working her thing. So I don't have much of anything to do with her except I'm sending her money, trying to help her, along the way, keeping her quiet. And 2005 comes along, and then I get three guys show up at my doorstep from Indianapolis. I got Kevin McCarthy, Al Langston-Camp, and George Maley show up.
What do they want?
Well, they wanted to come and talk about Our Lady of America and what I'm doing about it, and and all this stuff. And they wanted to ask about Fostoria and what I knew about them. And I told them, I said, I know about the woman over there calls herself Sister Joseph Therese. I said, but I got to tell you,
Problem.
Father Havel and I aren't so certain she's actually a nun. And they go, what do you mean? I said, well, Father Havel did some investigating, and he checked with the diocese, and they say she's not a nun, but they're not doing anything about it. He says, why aren't they doing anything about it? I said, I don't know. You got to go ask the bishop over there.
Right.
Not my problem. I don't need to stop anything. I just need to not be involved with it.
Absolutely.
I got enough trouble on my plate. I don't
Right.
need any more. So these guys are in there, and I told them, first thing I said, if you're thinking about it, I said, I would stay the hell away from Patricia Fuller.
Problem.
I said, she's a problem.
They didn't believe you.
Well, McCarthy thought that he could handle her and he could, take care of that and all. I said, just stay out of it. I said, it's best to stay out of trouble than to get out of trouble.
Right.
And they listened, but they left and they did their own thing. Well, they got involved with her. And they got involved with her and acting like they were going to straighten her out. They were going to make her into a solid nun, get her in conformance with the Vatican. They really did. They really did try. She didn't help. And anyway, things kind of blew up. She turned over all this $3 million, moved it out of her one bank in Fostoria to another bank in Indianapolis. For the reasons for that, I really don't understand.
She thought she was buffering it, but
well, she thought she was working her way into a stronger position with McCarthy and Langston-Camp to help her out because she knew that Langston-Camp had money.
okay.
And McCarthy didn't. He was a poor attorney. He had too many kids, and so I don't know what all happened. But anyway, their whole relationship fell apart, and I'm like, well, I'm telling these guys, well, I told you so. You should, probably just, saved your
I remember you telling me bits and pieces that you
save your
warned
powder.
her.
I said, just stay away from her. She's nothing but trouble. Well, they went ahead with it and they kept going. They thought I think they had white knight syndrome, and they thought they were going to be the ones that were going to save the day. Da-da-da, you know, da-da-da-da,
Oh, sure.
you know,
All
the
the
whole
time.
Dudley Do-Right thing.
Happens all the time.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what these guys had, was this white knight syndrome. They were going to save the day. And good for them. Go for it, you know.
Yeah, you got something to offer?
Save the day.
Right.
And I made them the same offer. He came, McCarthy wanted to buy the property.
Yeah, just give me what I got in it.
And I told him the same thing.
Be obedient to the local bishop.
Right.
And if you need me, let me know. I'll be here for you.
Well, I'll work for you for, you know, you can hire me.
What'd they say?
Well, he said, okay. So he goes back and he starts talking about how he's got an interested buyer in the property that wants to come and help promote the devotion. And I'm like, well, who could this be? He says, well, they need to remain anonymous for now.
Yeah.
And so he's going all this stuff. So he says, well, I need to see the books on this to make sure that the numbers are right and all like that.
Numbers are right.
And I said, what do you mean you need to see the books? You're not an accountant. He says, well, I got an accountant. He says, I need all this information. So I had my father, who is the accountant, and my wife,
Put
who is the
together the
accountant.
package.
I said, let's go ahead and give this guy, you know, some information to help him out with this. You know, he wants to see where we are with the basis on the property and
That's
all like that.
Yeah, here it is.
And I said, but I'm not walking away without at least our books being cleaned,
Right.
you know, struck even.
That's right, right.
You know, that's more than fair.
I got in it. You want in it. This is what it costs.
So McCarthy's going on and on about, you know, oh, you know, heaven's, you know, sending the cavalry in and I'm to lead the charge and blah, blah, blah. All this.
Who's going to lead the charge?
He was going to lead the charge.
Oh,
And it's like, oh, my Christ.
You can do that. Come up with the money, though.
Well,
That's the
but
first thing.
all these guys, they come in and they start talking about all this, like, you know, the cavalry is here, you know, the Lord sent me,
Yeah.
blah, blah, and none of them are real. So I'm listening to this and I'm taking these other meetings that are just wasting my time. And anyway, none of it happened.
So you handed over the stuff, the accounting stuff.
Right. But
They looked at it. What'd the guy say?
he said, oh, well, my client's not ready to move on this just yet. Well, I knew at that time who his client was. His
Yeah.
client was Fuller over in Fostoria.
Oh, jeez.
So he's not only staying away from her, he's gone full in bed with her.
You're stupid.
Okay, so
Was
they
Al
got,
involved in that?
yeah, they were
Oh,
all involved in it.
Jesus God.
But they're like not being forthcoming with
No,
me.
I'm
They
telling
were
you the truth.
they were being a little bit deceptive. Not deceitful. They were being very deceptive. Well, Kevin was.
You can't make this stuff up. This is
Al wasn't, because he wasn't really, you know, part of that dynamic that was going on. But they were two peas in a pod. But anyway, so I'm trying to stay out of this, you know, kind of problematic conflict. And I'm trying to still deal with, do I just say to heck with the church and all like that? Because all it's doing
You
is
can't-
causing me
you
problems.
can't do it yet.
Well, I
know what
wanted
you're
to
saying.
because
Right.
I had bills to pay.
No, absolutely.
And the church stuff wasn't
Doing it.
right. All it was doing was causing me more pain and getting me more death threats from these Catholics,
Right.
you know, who say
Right.
you're not doing it right,
Right.
you know. And so that's 2005, 2006. You know, these guys are all having a jolly time with Patricia Fuller doing stuff. You know, I don't know if they're off helping her spend her money, what they're doing with
Right,
it.
right.
You know, I didn't have anything to do with that. I don't want to even really care
Yeah,
about it.
You're right. They're out of your life. So
So-
you thought.
So I'm going through my stuff. 2008 comes along. Okay, and I'm still trying to find help to help me. The banks are collapsing. You know,
Sure, 2008, we lost tons of money.
terrible time.
Yeah.
And so everyone's fighting for money at this time, and I'm, you know, having troubles with making the payments, you know, up here. And these guys, they go and they launch the first volley in the legal fight with Patricia Fuller. And they did it because Bishop Blair in Toledo told them to, because he didn't have the balls himself. This was Leonard Blair, who was a bishop of Toledo, Ohio.
Right.
Didn't have the balls to shut this woman down himself. And so
He's a weasel.
he gets a couple of Catholic guys out of Indianapolis to come over into his diocese and to do a hit on Patricia Fuller to take her out legally, because the bishop didn't have the balls to stand up to her and say, not a nun, not
Sure,
in my
you call it what
diocese,
it is,
you
right.
shut it down. So he didn't do that. Instead, he didn't hire, but he gave the approval to these two guys to come in and sue this woman in his diocese to show that she wasn't a Catholic nun and that she
He
didn't
wanted somebody
own these-
else to do his work.
Right, because the problem at this point, I think, was the trademarks and the copyrights that she was saying that she inherited from Millie when she died.
Jeez.
Okay, so we've got this lawsuit going on where the Langston-Camp, I think it was just Langston-Camp, he called it the Langston-Camp Family Apostolate, filed suit against Fuller for release of these trademarks and copyrights because they really were, I showed from the one document there, the diary, that these things were in the public domain. And they put them out there themselves, along with Archbishop Leibold. They had put these things out into circulation. They willingly, distributed it, to other bishops and stuff like that. So it didn't have any shield of copyright or trademark.
Yeah,
at that
they
point.
have the copyright
They
on
made
the
it
thing.
public domain on their own.
Okay.
And so that's what a lot of the court case ended up being about. But then there was also where there was misuse of these funds and stuff like that that she had, put their way. But I don't think they did what she alluded to.
What did they think about her 30 years of not filing taxes? I mean,
Well,
you're going after the lady.
I thought that was kind of interesting because one of the jurors on the panel was an IRS field
Oh,
auditor.
jeez.
Okay, and they wanted her on there. Their side wanted her on the jury because they thought they were going to make a tax case against Al Langston-Camp, in this. And, it didn't work.
No.
It didn't work at all because the tax auditor, the field rep, when she found out that Fuller hadn't filed taxes in 30 years, she just like, you want to talk about a major eye roll. Oh man,
Right.
This
She did
young
that,
lady,
did
boy,
that.
she gave me like major eye roll, like, oh my God, you got to be kidding me.
Right.
This is too unbelievable.
Yeah.
And so she's going through it. She's communicating with me from the jury box across the way through the ice. Saying, oh my God, you got to be kidding me.
Goofy group.
Yeah, what else is there?
Yeah.
And so, anyway, so Leonard Blair, Bishop Blair, kind of gives these two guys the go-ahead to take out
Take her
Fuller.
out. Do my job.
Do the hit.
Right.
We call it a hit job.
Right.
And so he ordered the hit on Fuller in his own diocese. So that to me seems like three guys are putting together a plan.
Sure.
Okay, that's it. That's all I'll say on that. And so we get 2008 comes. Langston-Camp files a suit against Fuller for release of these trademarks and copyrights. What does she do? She loads up and she countersues and comes back. She gets in with this guy named Paul Hartman, who was this ex-postal inspector who lied in court about a guy who fabricated evidence in a capital murder case. The guy's a complete
Bad operator.
joke. But anyway, he really made himself look terrible in the trial several times. And it's enough there. So he's got to live with himself. Just a piece of, even fatter than fat Gabby Hayes. Is what he looked like. But anyway, he was nothing to write home about. Mom was sure not proud of him.
How would he get involved? Did he know the
Well,
attorney?
he got involved because his wife, I guess, was like the nurse for Fuller when she came out of the hospital one time. And so they worked their way into it, and they were just after money.
Okay.
And they thought that they were going to countersue back against Langston-Camp, McCarthy, and then we need three guys because they wanted to file a RICO case for a conspiracy.
So they needed three people to file a RICO. This is
Right.
crazy.
And so they drugged me into it as a likely candidate
You
because
told
I
them,
had the
stay
property.
away from these
Because
people.
they wanted the property. That was their main goal, is they wanted the property, no matter what it did to me or my family. They didn't care.
Yeah.
And they were doing everything they could to try to wear me out and run me out.
Listen, I can't believe you're even sitting here breathing.
Well,
with a number of people. But there's other people too that were backstabbers and stuff, Catholic backstabbers.
Well,
I can't believe you're still breathing.
Well, but here's the thing then, is that they filed this counterclaim back saying that I was in a conspiracy with these two other guys to steal the devotion to Our Lady of
And you
America.
weren't at all involved with them, even in.
And I'm the one who's doing what? Trying to stay as hands off away from it as
right?
possible.
You warned them, stay away from the lady.
Right. I mean, the apparition may have happened, but you don't want anything to do with this person.
Right. Yeah. Blair was a coward, by the way.
He was definitely a coward.
To do that. And I don't know where he is. Is he still alive?
He retired from Newark, Delaware.
Yeah.
They made him an archbishop. And he's retired now.
Hey, send him some money, Blair.
Yeah.
You owe him.
Well, Blair is a coward. Oh, and he had been, and he was at that time, and
Still is.
yeah. I mean, to not even say anything,
Ever call you, Larry?
No.
Hey, this is
not even a note saying, "Hey, thank you,
yeah. Nah.
thank you for standing." You stood up for me. No, they didn't. The only one who said thank you was Cardinal George. But he was on his deathbed, and so
Well, no, he was confessing really to you that he knew.
I think he kind of was.
Absolutely.
Like we were
He
so
was saying,
weak.
we didn't do it. I didn't do it. Nobody did it.
Well, I told the Cardinal, I said, I'm the one that got you thrown off the case. I got Burke thrown off the case. I got Blair thrown off the case.
And you
I got
threw me under
Ricken
the
thrown off
bus.
the case. I got Garcia thrown off the case.
Right.
And not a single one of you assholes showed up
No,
for the
you
trial.
spit at him is what you did.
I said, none of you said anything. You never sent a note. Nothing.
Right.
And you knew what was going on.
Sure they did. Blair put the deal together. His
Yeah.
own hitman. Disrupted
Well,
everything.
Well, these two guys, so I get named as a co-conspirator with these guys. And I'm like, I don't even frickin' know these guys.
That's right.
I've met them once. How am I supposed to be in a
They
conspiracy
needed
with
their
you?
third person.
Right. So they named me, but that was their biggest mistake in the trial.
So now you're gearing up to go to trial. And have you got your fighting face on? Are you ready to?
No. It took a long time. We were going through depositions and all like that. I ended up losing the property in 2010.
Okay.
So I'm going through all these other major problems. In a federal case, it never gets to trial for like 5 years.
So when did it? 2010?
2014, we finally ended up going to trial.
Jeez, that's right. 2014.
So I have all these years to have to,
be in misery.
well, and to be kind of like stunted. I can't really do anything.
One way or the other. Yeah.
Yeah, my wife decides to divorce me because she can't put up with the crap anymore.
Wow.
I don't blame her.
No, I understand, Larry.
I wanted to divorce me too.
Right.
And you said so.
You didn't even want to be there.
Well, 2012, I was ready to kill myself
Yeah,
because it was just so bad. No one would talk to me except for my mother. Everyone else had believed the lies that had come out of Fostoria from Patricia Fuller and her group. They were going out telling all sorts of lies. And what they had done in 2008, they had gotten to Bishop Darcy in Fort Wayne, South Bend, getting him to believe their story about me stealing from a nun.
That's it. Darcy knew that was crap.
Well, Darcy didn't.
Darcy was his own cockroach on his own.
Well,
He knew that was crap.
Well, Darcy goes on EWTN with Bishop or Archbishop Burke
He knew it.
and tells the world
Idiot.
that he knew nothing about Our Lady of America or anything going on in Rome City, when the guy had been to the property at least 5 times with his group, saying Mass there, having dinner with me there,
That's right.
talking with you about Our Lady of America. Anyone around our circle, we were always giving him books and stuff like that, and more information about Our Lady of America,
right.
the miraculous healings and things like that. Bishop knew all about it, but he goes on worldwide television and lied. He didn't have to lie.
No,
Why did he lie? Because he was afraid of being named in a lawsuit.
Money, sure. They all did, and they all did. And that's why, folks, listen, if you're on your deathbed and you see portholes and with demons, you better start begging the Blessed Mother for intercession, because you're going down. And it's all going to be because of you and the decisions that you made, or the decisions that I make.
Yeah.
We're our own hangmen.
Change your mind real fast. We all dig our own graves in this world. Some of us just have a bigger shovel.
Well,
So-
they push you to the point where you're in despair.
Well, yeah, and I was ready to kill myself.
Right.
I mean, I was ready to end it because
Kind of a bishop with he's the flock guy that's supposed to protect everyone. Where is he?
well, they weren't around in my corner. They were basically hanging me out to dry. Now, in 2008, when Darcy goes on TV and says that, okay,
What's he say about you?
well, he says, I don't know nothing about it. I've never heard anything. I know nothing. I don't know nothing. Don't ask me. I've never seen anything. I don't know anything about it. Nothing to talk about. Well, that was a total lie.
Right.
Well, what happened the very next day is I start getting death threats from
Sure, because
Catholics.
he's saying that
That
an
I'm a
authority
liar.
figure is saying that this man.
Has been lying to you for years. So I'm the bad guy. So all of a sudden, I'm the one who's been lying to everybody about the bishop knowing about things, because everyone would always say about this with the devotion and the information about Our Lady of America. Well, does the bishop know? I said, yeah, the bishop knows. Bishop knows more than he wants to
And
know.
half of those people that ask about does the bishop know are in a coma too. All right, but do your own work. Talk to the man. He'll tell you.
Well, they're Catholics. They don't want to do their own work. They just want to have it served to them rather than do the work and, minister to themselves. Because you're the problem, not me.
That's right.
Because I'm Catholic.
A holic. I just had an interplay with somebody, and I think first time I really saw he was describing the Catholic, and I was just outlining. They sent me something. I was saying that be prepared. These things are going on, and it was like I pricked their bubble, and all of a sudden there was this dissertation of.
Oh my gosh!
So I said, Larry, I sent it to him. I said, is this what you mean by a Catholic? He goes, 100%.
120 proof.
Boom.
Yeah, they're drunk. They're drunk on it, but she couldn't listen to the good advice you were giving her.
But she says to me, she goes, in the thing, she goes, well, maybe I should investigate more of the apparitions. Yeah, that would be helpful.
But that was all you told her in the beginning.
Right. Our Lady of America, or I'm sorry, Our Lady of Fatima. This is what was said of what's going on in the church. But they know something is wrong because they're so reactionary and so much in their box that they would rather accuse you rather than interact with you and say, well, why do you say this? And what do I need to do in order to, but people are afraid, they're scared. Of course you would be. The Roman Catholic Church is in free fall and apostasy. And most of the people, the bishops and the priests, they're not going to admit to that.
What's an apostasy?
Apostasy means that they're falling away from the faith. It basically means they no longer believe the teachings of faith and morals in the church. That same thing where Pope Francis says there are all religions
Lead to God.
lead to God, but Christ already said it. I am the truth. I am the way.
And I am the life.
And I am the life. So it's the religions don't. The only thing that leads us to God is Jesus Christ. And if it wasn't for his suffering to pay for our sins, we would all have to put a plastic bag over our head. But these people are saying, you can get to heaven this way. Well, that's a breach of faith.
Well, it's kind of like,
And these are people that should know better.
well, you have all these Roman Catholic priests up there who don't believe in the true presence of the Eucharist.
Sure. How many percentage they
Well,
say?
they say, they're holding up the Eucharist and they're saying, the body of Christ, I think,
Right.
Right. And they're going through the actions, the motions, but in the back, they're decayed, and they're basically just
Drawing their check.
yeah.
And our Lord already said it. All sins are forgiven, but those sins of fornicating with power and money, there's nothing human, there's nothing animal that I can even justify you with. So if we do that, if money and power is the source of our motivation, you can kiss your ass goodbye. That's all it is. That's how he does it. We do it to ourselves.
Yeah, but we need to, we need to be a little more on ourselves about being being true to what it is that we take as our commitments. Not to say, well, it's okay this time.
Right. No, you're right. Right.
Because eventually
That's right.
then it's all corrupted. So,
Right.
but
Okay,
so we're in this court case.
Okay.
Okay, they file back and accuse me of being in a conspiracy with these other two guys, to steal the devotion to Our Lady of America.
Okay.
Which is preposterous.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And so I'm thinking, this is so messed up. What did these guys do, and why am I? But I knew it why. They wanted the property. Everybody wanted the property.
So if they could suffocate you, they could go in and maybe sweep up the property.
Right. Come in and take it at a bargain, or, basically capitulate. Say, please take it from me.
Right. And that's with property that it often can happen like that. Larry and his wife were involved in property investments, and they were very, very successful for many, many years. That they knew how to pick the property, this and that, and the other thing. And but then there's a certain point where
I still can. If anyone needs help out there, I'm available. Hey,
but
it was plug time.
You have this. This miracle property, this magnificent display of service to Christ at the Rome city. But there's a certain point you could give it away, and it still requires money to maintain it.
Oh yeah,
You
I had a $25,000 nut to cover every month.
well, you were saying
That's a lot of pasta.
yeah, $25,000 just to pay.
Right, just keep the lights on and keep the mortgage paid, and
Wow.
that wasn't even the taxes. The taxes were another like $4,000 a month on top of that.
Was that right?